What really happens at a sleepover? Junk food, whispered secrets, staying up way past your bedtime, right? Usually. But for some, it's a night where the whispers turn into screams, and the darkness reveals something you can never unsee. We are about to count down the chilling stories that twisted innocent sleepovers into nights of pure horror. So turn down the lights, if you have the nerve. Story number 1. Humans can lick too. We're starting with a story you might think you know. It's an absolute classic, the kind of urban legend that's been told in hushed tones at sleepovers for decades, playing on that primal fear of being home alone. The story goes that a young girl, we'll call her Chloe, was finally getting her wish. Her parents were going out of town for their anniversary, and after a lot of begging, they agreed that at 13, she was old enough to stay home alone for one night. She wasn't totally alone, though. She had Max, her old, fiercely loyal golden retriever. Max was her shadow, and his familiar presence was a comfort. The night started off great. Chloe ordered a whole pizza just for herself, watched scary movies her parents would never allow, and reveled in the freedom. The house, normally full of family noise, was quiet. But at first, it was a good quiet. As the hours crept by, the silence started to feel heavy. Every creak of the old house, sounds she'd heard a million times, now sounded foreign and loud. A news report flashed on the TV about an escaped patient from a nearby psychiatric hospital, but she quickly turned it off, just trying to scare people. She checked all the locks on the doors and windows, then checked them again. Around midnight, she headed for bed. Max followed her in and settled onto the floor, right by her side as always. Chloe switched off the light, plunging the room into total darkness. She lay there listening to the quiet, and that's when she heard it. Drip, drip, drip. It was coming from her bathroom. Just a leaky faucet, she told herself. Annoying, but nothing to worry about. Still, her heart started to pound. To soothe her nerves, she dropped her hand over the side of the bed, feeling for her furry protector. A moment later, she felt the familiar, sloppy, warm lick of Max's tongue across her knuckles. A wave of relief washed over her. Good old Max. She was safe. She fell asleep. An hour later, she woke up. Drip, drip, drip. The sound was louder now, more insistent. A cold knot of fear tightened in her stomach. She was too scared to get up. So, she did the only thing she could think of. She lowered her hand into the darkness again, and again she felt the comforting lick of her dog. Reassured, she drifted back to sleep. This happened one more time. The dripping sound was practically mocking her, but each time that wet lick on her hand was her anchor. Max was there. Everything was okay. The next morning, sunlight finally streamed into her room, chasing the fears away. The dripping was still there, just a faint echo now. Annoyed, she got up to finally deal with the faucet. She walked into the bathroom, and she screamed. A raw, soul-shattering scream. Hanging from the shower head was Max. His throat had been slit, and his blood was what had been dripping onto the tile all night. As her mind fractured, trying to make sense of the horror, her eyes fell on the fogged-up shower door. Scrawled in her own dog's blood were 4 words that would haunt her forever. Humans can lick too. Story number 2, The New House. This next one comes from a viewer named Liam, and it's not an urban legend, it's something that happened to him. It's a chilling reminder that a brand new house doesn't always mean a fresh start. Liam was 12 when his best friend Josh moved into a new house. This wasn't just any house, it was a brand new build on the absolute edge of town. For miles, there was nothing but construction sites and dark, dense woods. Josh's place was the first one finished, an island of newness in a sea of mud. To celebrate, Josh was having his first sleepover, and Liam was the only guest. The place had that new house smell of paint and sawdust. It was exciting. With Josh's parents exhausted from unpacking and already in bed, the boys had the run of the place. They set up their sleeping bags in the huge, empty basement, their laughter echoing off the concrete walls. But as the night got later, the novelty wore off. The silence of the location was deep. No cars, no barking dogs, Nothing. Around 11 p.m., they were on the main floor looking for a movie. The living room had a big picture window with one of those cheap, paper-thin pull-down blinds. As they were scrolling through titles, there was a sudden, violent noise. Zip, thwack. Both boys jumped. The blind on the window had shot up, coiling itself with a loud crack. They stared at it, then at each other, hearts pounding. "What was that?" Liam whispered. "Must be broken," Josh said, but he didn't sound too sure. "It's a new house. Stuff's probably just settling." He pulled the blind back down and they tried to get back to the movie, but the mood was ruined. The house didn't feel like an adventure anymore. It felt watchful. They retreated back to the basement, but the feeling of being watched followed them. Later, Josh had to go upstairs to the bathroom. Liam, not wanting to be left alone, went with him. While Josh was in the bathroom, Liam waited in the hallway. At the end of the hall was Josh's parents' bedroom. The door was slightly open, the room inside pitch black. Liam glanced toward the doorway, and his blood went ice cold. For just a split second, he saw it, a tall, black shape, darker than the dark, standing in the doorway. It was a featureless, human-shaped void. It was there for a heartbeat, and then it simply melted back into the blackness. Liam couldn't breathe. He couldn't make a sound. When Josh came out of the bathroom, he found Liam pale and trembling, pointing a shaky finger down the hall. "There was someone in your parents' room," he stammered. Josh tried to be brave, saying it was just a shadow, a trick of the light. But there were no lights. There was nothing outside but dirt and darkness. They searched the house together and found nothing. But the feeling of a hostile presence was suffocating. They spent the rest of the night huddled in the basement with a baseball bat, jumping at every groan and creak the new house made. The next morning, as Liam was leaving, Josh's mom was complaining about all the little things the builders still needed to fix. "And these cheap blinds," she said with a sigh, gesturing to the living room window. "This one just keeps rolling up by itself. It's the strangest thing." Liam never had another sleepover at Josh's house. As he said in his email, he'll never forget the feeling that they weren't the first ones to live there after all. Story number 3, The Hook. You've definitely heard of this one. The Hook is one of the most famous urban legends ever, a classic campfire tale designed to warn teenagers about the dangers of parking in secluded lovers' lanes. But let's imagine for a minute a group of friends who decide to put that legend to the test. The story takes place on a cool autumn night. 4 friends, 2 couples, Mark and Sarah, and Ben and Jessica, are hanging out in Ben's basement for a sleepover. They're telling ghost stories, and Mark, the horror fan of the group, tells the tale of the Hookman. He sets the scene. A young couple, parked on a dark road listening to the radio. A news bulletin cuts in. A maniac with a hook for a hand has escaped a nearby asylum. The girl gets scared. She hears a scratching sound outside. She begs her boyfriend to just go. Annoyed, he peels out. When they get to her house, he walks around to her door and sees it, a bloody metal hook hanging from the handle. The story works. The girls are spooked. Ben, trying to act cool, just scoffs. "It's just a story, a dumb one too. Nobody has a hook for a hand." "You don't think it's real?" Mark challenges. "Of course not." And that's when the terrible idea was born. Their town had its own lover's lane. Fueled by teenage ego, Ben declares he and Jessica will drive up there right now to prove how stupid the story is. Against everyone's better judgment, Jessica agrees. They grab the keys and head out into the night. Ben drives them up to the dark, gravel overlook and kills the engine, turning to Jessica with a smirk. "See? No hook-handed maniacs." They sit in the oppressive silence. Mark's story hangs in the air. Every snap of a twig from the woods sounds like a footstep. Jessica's confidence quickly evaporates. "Okay, you proved your point," she says, her voice shaky. "Can we go now? This is creeping me out." Suddenly they hear it, a faint metallic scrape. Scrap. From the passenger side of the car. Jessica's eyes go wide. "What was that?" Ben's face is pale. "It's just a branch," he says, his voice cracking. Scrape, drag, scrape. It's louder this time, deliberate. It sounds exactly like metal on metal. That's it for Jessica. She lets out a choked scream. "Drive, Ben! Drive now!" Ben, fumbling with the keys, slams the car into drive and floors it. He doesn't slow down until the bright streetlights of his neighborhood are in view. He pulls up to his house, heart hammering, and forces a laugh. See? Fine. It was probably an animal or something. He gets out, his legs like jelly, and walks around to open Jessica's door, trying to act like he wasn't just terrified. He grabs the handle, and he freezes. He lets out a weird, strangled noise and stumbles backward, his face a mask of pure horror. Jessica leans over to see what's wrong. There, dangling from the door handle and glinting under the streetlight, is a crude, sharp, and undeniably bloody prosthetic hook. These stories get under your skin because they attack our deepest fears. The fear of the unknown, the fear of being alone in the dark. And we have more tales to tell. If you're enjoying the chills, make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell. You don't want to miss what's crawling out of the darkness next. Story Sleepover, The Watcher. Some stories don't need ghosts or monsters to be terrifying. They're scary because they are 100% true. This is the real story of a family whose dream home became a living nightmare. All because of some letters from a person who called themselves The Watcher. In June of 2014, Derek and Maria Broadus bought their dream home, 657 Boulevard, in the idyllic town of Westfield, New Jersey. It was a beautiful house, perfect for their 3 young children. They hadn't even moved in yet, stopping by daily to manage renovations. 3 days after closing, Derek checked the mail for the first time. Inside a heavy white envelope addressed to the new owner was a typed letter. It started friendly enough. Dearest new neighbor at 657 Boulevard, allow me to welcome you to the neighborhood. But the tone quickly turned sinister. The writer claimed their family had been watching the house for generations. My grandfather watched the house in the 1920s, and my father watched in the 1960s. It is now my time, the letter read. The writer knew they had children, asking, have they found out what is in the walls yet? I am pleased to know your names now, and the name of the young blood you have brought to me. The letter was signed, The Watcher. Terrified, Derek called the police. 2 weeks later, a second letter arrived. This one was worse. It used their names and their children's nicknames. The writer mentioned details that proved they were watching, like their daughter painting on an enclosed porch. 657. Boulevard is anxious for you to move in, the letter threatened. It has been years and years since the young blood ruled the hallways of the house. Will the young blood play in the basement, or are they too afraid to go down there alone? I would be very afraid if I were them. It is far away from the rest of the house. If you were upstairs, you would never hear them scream. The family's dream had curdled into pure terror. They never moved into the house. They were trapped, owning a home they were too afraid to live in and couldn't sell without disclosing the letters. Investigations were launched, but no suspect was ever identified. After 5 years, the Broadus family finally sold the house in 2019 at a massive financial loss. As far as anyone knows, the new owners have never received a letter. But the question hangs over that quiet New Jersey street. Is the Watcher gone? Or are they just watching and waiting? Story number 5, the Ouija board. Ouija boards. They're a sleepover staple, aren't they? Part party game, part dare. But for a viewer named Brianne, a homemade board turned a boring night into one she'd never forget. This is her story. It was a typical sleepover in her friend Amanda's basement. 5 teenage girls, sleeping bags in a circle, junk food everywhere. They got bored, and someone had an idea. They'd make a Ouija board from a pizza box and use a shot glass for the planchette. Most of them, including Brianne, thought it was silly. They laughed, accusing each other of pushing the glass as they asked, "Are there any spirits with us?" For a long time, nothing. Then the glass moved. Slowly, deliberately. HELP. Nervous giggles broke the silence. "Who's doing that?" Everyone swore it wasn't them. They asked another question. "Who are you?" The glass moved faster. SARAH. Then a year, 1978. Then a word, FIRE. The room went silent. The air felt heavy and cold. Trying to break the tension, Brianne asked a safe question. "Sarah, are you a friendly spirit?" The glass sat still for a second. Then it shot across the board to NO. Before they could react, it zipped frantically between the letters GET, then slid to OUT, get out. At that exact moment, a black shadow streaked across the far basement wall, vanishing near the stairs. That was it. Game over. Screaming, the girls scrambled away from the board, forgetting the most important rule: always say goodbye. They bolted up the stairs, chasing the shadow. At the top of the stairs, a small porcelain doll on a hallway table was knocked on its side. Nobody could explain it, but the fear was real. The rest of the night was sleepless. Every sound was a threat. One of the girls swore she heard someone jumping on a bed in the next room, but it was empty. Later, they heard a noise from inside a closet, but were too terrified to check. The worst moment came later. They were alone in the house and heard footsteps. Heavy, deliberate footsteps, coming up from the main floor. Thump, thump, thump. They knew, with a certainty that made no sense, that it wasn't a person. It was whatever they had talked to. Panicked, they barricaded themselves in the bathroom. They heard the footsteps reach the landing right outside their door and stop. The silence was worse than the sound. They held their breath, tears streaming down their faces. Suddenly, they heard shouts from downstairs. It was the neighbors' older brothers who had seen a figure moving through the kitchen window from the street and came running in. They searched the entire house. They found nothing. No intruder. But the girls knew what they experienced. They had opened a door, and for one terrifying night, something else had walked through it. Story number 6. Aren't you glad you didn't turn on the light? Our last story is another one of those iconic urban legends, the kind that spreads like wildfire through college dorms. It's short, it's brutal, and it's a masterclass in psychological terror. We'll call the two college roommates Kate and Jenna. They were total opposites. Kate was a studious pre-med major who lived in the library. Jenna was a social butterfly who was rarely home before 2 a.m. But it worked. One night, Jenna was heading to a huge campus party. She tried to get Kate to come, but Kate had a massive chemistry exam and had to pull an all-nighter. Jenna left, and Kate settled in at the library for a long night. Hours later, completely exhausted, Kate realized she'd left a critical textbook back in the dorm. She sighed, packed up her stuff, and started the quiet walk across the dark campus. When she got to her room, she turned the handle as quietly as she could. The room was pitch black. Jenna must be asleep. Not wanting to wake her, Kate decided against turning on the overhead light and tiptoed inside. The room had a strange, faint, coppery smell. Kate frowned, a chill running up her arms. She fumbled on her desk in the dark, searching for her book. As she did, she heard a noise from Jenna's bed. A soft, rustling, squirming sound, mixed with heavy, labored breathing. Kate froze. Oh God. Jenna wasn't alone. She'd brought a guy back. Mortified to have walked in on them, Kate quickly found her textbook, grabbed her keys, and slipped back out, her face burning with embarrassment. She went back to the library but couldn't focus. She just felt weird. Finally, as the sun started to rise, she gave up and headed back to the dorm to try and get an hour or two of sleep. She opened the door, and the first rays of morning light filtered in. The metallic smell was much stronger now. Her eyes adjusted, and she looked over at Jenna's bed to whisper an apology for barging in earlier. But the words caught in her throat. Jenna was on her bed, but she wasn't sleeping. Her eyes were wide, staring at the ceiling. Her throat had been cut from ear to ear. Kate let out a choked gasp, her mind refusing to process the horror. And then she saw it. On the wall above Jenna's headboard, scrawled in her roommate's blood, the letters still glistening, was a single, terrifying question. Aren't you glad you didn't turn on the light? A dorm room, a new house, your own bed. These are supposed to be our safe spaces. But every story we've told tonight violates that safety, reminding us just how thin the line is between feeling secure and being utterly terrified. It proves that sometimes the real monsters aren't just in our heads. So the next time you're at a sleepover and you hear a strange noise in the middle of the night, the next time you reach down for the comfort of a pet in the darkness, remember these stories. And ask yourself, Are you sure you're alone? What's the scariest thing that's ever happened to you at a sleepover? Drop it in the comments below. If you enjoyed these chilling tales, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Until next time, try to get some sleep.